camera open or is camera closed fine?
Whatever you're comfortable with, sir.
All right, I'll just open my camera. Hello, everyone. My name is Kovid. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Christian, for the very kind introduction. Um, my name is Kovid, and I'm also 19 years old. So if you guys have any COVID-19 jokes, remember that I've probably heard them before. In my defense, I was born 19 years earlier than the virus. So if anything, it's the disease which named itself after me. The presentation that I'll be giving today talks about the entrepreneurial mindset. And I think it's necessary for me to talk about this because there is a certain change which is happening in societies around us and economies around us. And people who are aware of this change and people who have adapted their mindset to that change are going to benefit from it. People who have not are missing out on a huge opportunity. So the goal of today's presentation from my side is number one, to not bore you, hopefully, and number two, to sort of try to teach you about how to think about your career moving forward in an age where nothing is permanent and everything can sort of change at a whim. So, what I'll do is I'm going to share my screen and just let me know if you guys can see it. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Yeah, it's visible.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I just present it then. You guys still see it, right?
Yeah,
We can
it's
see it.
visible. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so the presentation today is entrepreneurial thinking, why making your own rules is the new rule. And I'll just begin with a little bit about me. Gushan has already spoken a little bit, so I'll just keep it short. My name is Kovid Bhaduri, and I'm a believer and a practitioner of self-directed learning. The picture is from a website I made, Life Learning and Business. You can still find it at kovidbhaduri.com, where I sort of talk about my learnings and where I go with my life. I belong to a learning community known as Praxis, where I have sort of developed some of my core business skills. And I currently work as a researcher at the Juniper Group. Um, in my day-to-day work, I essentially study special economic zones, which are these geographically bounded areas where laws are much different, and therefore it sort of attracts a lot of foreign investment and grow quite heavily. And I help venture capital and private equity firms invest into them. So on the right, you see the Dubai Internet City, which is one of the most famous special economic zones in the world. And on the left, BlackRock, which is one of the biggest investment management companies in the world. So my sort of day-to-day job is helping companies like BlackRock invest into places like the Dubai Internet City. So as a researcher working for the Asian Ripple Group, one of my main things that I do is I study a lot of history and I study a lot of economics. And one of the key things which I have been studying for a few months now is the story of China. And when talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, I wanted to start by talking about China because I really believe the entire sort of concept of entrepreneurial thinking is embodied in its story. And I'll tell you how in showing you a few examples. So this is a picture of 1959 China. It is a movement known as the Great Leap Forward. Some of you who are coming from a commerce side in high school are probably aware of the movement. It is when essentially the entire country was sort of, it became a single company. All of the land was owned by the government, and it just asked every citizen to sort of work in the same plot of land. So you see, in this picture, all of these people will be working on the same plot of land. They have the same rules and regulations. Everyone here is an employee. So what happens is there's this huge farmland, and it's not owned by the people, it's owned by the government, and they ask all of these different people to work on it under rules and regulations which are decided by the government. So the entire country, every single person in the country in 1959 in China is an employee of the government, and they're working under very strict, very clearly defined rules and regulations under which to work. So it's characterized by the entire country is one company. Um, all citizens have job security, so we don't have to look for a job. As soon as you hit legal age, hired by the government, go work in the farm. All citizens are employees of the government. Everybody is following a fixed set of guidelines and rules. You don't have to think. There is a very specific way you have to work, and the government will tell you how to do it. All citizens work in the same state-owned land, and private thinking and enterprise is discouraged. So it's you don't think for yourself. The government tells you what to do, and you have job security because essentially you're being hired as soon as you hit legal age. So what happens, this is a legacy of the Great Leap Forward movement, in case you've forgotten. It led to one of the greatest famines in China. Millions died. In fact, if you look at the figures, more people died in Mao-induced famines in China than Hitler and Stalin combined. People were so desperate for food that they would literally chew the bark off of trees when they ran out of food. It was such a horrible situation. And why this happened is because a centralized planning institution telling people what to do really did not work. People had no incentive to work, and nobody had any ideas. And even if they did have ideas, they can't implement them. And it was incredibly horrible. And it's one of the biggest tragedies of humankind ever. I want to contrast that with another example from China. So this is a city in China known as Shenzhen. In the left, it's the Shenzhen from 1980s, a small fishing village of about 40,000, 50,000 people. On the right, Shenzhen of today, 2016, about 20 million in population and one of the most important cities in the world, even though you might not have heard of it. So what happened? What changed in Shenzhen? Well, Shenzhen became one of the many special economic zones. Again, sorry, it's my expertise, so I had to put it in there. Established by the Chinese government along the Pearl River Delta. Uh, what's important is it went from a place where everybody is an employee. Under the communist system, you can't think, you can't decide for yourself, to where anybody could become an entrepreneur. In Shenzhen, it's still part of China, but in Shenzhen, the economy is completely capitalist. You yourself make your own decisions. You decide what company to open, how do you work, where do you work, what do you learn, everything. The safe employment net was taken away. Citizens were encouraged to think on their own and take their economic matters into their own hands. The government will not tell you what to do. You will tell yourself what to do. And population and income have skyrocketed. Shenzhen has now become one of the most important megalopolises in the world. And an interesting statistic for you. In 2016, Shenzhen built more skyscrapers than the US and Australia combined. The entire nations of US and Australia combined were outshone by this one city in China, which built more skyscrapers in 2016. So the reason I went into this entire story about China is because 1959 China, the Great Leap Forward, is a great example of what happens when you put a lot of employees together. People who are, people who are just ready-made to follow instructions and have only learned one thing, and they're very narrow-minded and they just do one thing. 2016 Shenzhen is a great example of what happens when a lot of entrepreneurs come together and they start thinking about themselves and start thinking about how they can sort of improve things. And in many ways, this story of China embodies the spirit of the employee versus entrepreneur conversation, which I want to talk about here. So the real change that happened in China, of course, was a legal one. Shenzhen became legally a place where you could own private property and sort of operate on your own private enterprise. But what it means in an individual level is allowing people to own and operate private enterprises, work partners of the economy. However, on an individual level, it is actually the mindset of people that is being changed. Um, so when people can see that they are directly going to benefit from the work that they do, what's the difference is if you are an employee in a company, maybe you are an employee in Apple, right? You can be sort of the best employee in your department, but the work that you won't see Apple being changed by the work that you do. Like maybe you do a great marketing campaign, but what does that do for Apple? You don't even know, because Apple is so big. And even if you perform very bad, you don't know what happens, because it's so big that you don't see what you do. Like whatever you do, it goes where you don't see the effect. But when you're sort of entrepreneurial, you work for yourself, and whatever you do, you see the direct benefit. If you fail, it's so high stakes that like you could like probably starve. And if you're doing well, you could become a millionaire. There's no sort of boundary. So they take an active part in their own growth. You don't depend on like, maybe I'll get a promotion the next year or whatever. You are actively responsible for your own growth. Decide your own rules and terms of employment. You're not dependent on a charter which tells you. And they were able to create miracles. When these things changed, people's mindset changed, Shenzhen happened. The important thing to keep in mind is that people always work better when they're working for themselves. The incentive purely from a psychological point of view simply cannot be matched. So here is a table which very clearly defines what I'm trying to say, the employee versus entrepreneurial mindset. But you know what, I'm not a big fan of this table, so I'm just going to skip the slide. And I like this a little better. So this is a better way of putting things, right? The virgin employee mentality versus the chat entrepreneur mentality. So as an employee mentality, you're going to rely on other people to tell you what to do. You know, it might be your teacher, it might be your boss, it might be your parents, but if somebody else is deciding the direction that your life is going to go to, you're having an employee mentality. You're not thinking for yourself. The chat entrepreneur mentality is you're listening to a lot of advice. You're probably listening to more advice than somebody who has an employee mentality, but you're essentially telling yourself what to do. You're living life according to your own terms. An employee mentality will be someone who has a passive growth trajectory. You know, he gets to a company and then he waits for a year, he gets a promotion, 5 years, another promotion, 10 years, another promotion. And he has a very passive growth trajectory. He's in the same company and he's slowly growing. The entrepreneur mentality is taking your growth into your own hands. You work so hard that within 6 months, you go to your boss and say, you know what, I deserve a promotion. And maybe if he doesn't agree, you move on to a different company, which sort of values you for what you're worth. You take your own growth into your own hands, and you're not dependent on a system which sort of slowly brings you up. Um, Virgin employee mentality is you're a part of a system. You're very you think you're very safe because you're sort of in a cocoon where you're isolated from different worlds. But the entrepreneur mentality is that you are the system. You are your own. I like to call it. You are the CEO of you incorporated. You know, you are a corporation and you are your own CEO. So you're not part of a different system which is telling you how you're going to go where. You are the system. And then another difference is the employee is looking for safety provided by other people. You know, he's in a job, he's in a company, and he thinks he's very safe because he has job security. The entrepreneur mentality is he's not looking for safety. He's not in a company because it's a secure job, but he's so skilled and he's so willing to learn and adapt that he's truly safe, that even if he gets fired from a company, there's 10 other companies that want to hire him. So when you're looking for safety, you're actually exposing yourself to risk. When you're sort of establishing your value and not looking for safety, you're truly safe. So this is kind of vague, but today's employers are actually looking for entrepreneurs in their company. When they're hiring, they don't look for people who can follow instructions to the core and sort of have a single area of expertise. They want entrepreneurs. And I go into some of the reasoning why this has become the case. So, number one, right? Um, the computing power of computers is rapidly advancing. This is a sort of a graph which demonstrates Moore's law. It's a slightly complicated law, but what it essentially means is that computing power is increasing exponentially. So if you look at like computing power based off of years, it's quite clear. Every year, computers will become much more faster than the year before. So what this means for you is that every job that used to be performed by a human being is very, very like fastly being replaced by computers. So I think that you think is like this is safe, probably isn't. This is a great example. So one of the things that we do at AG, Asian Upper Group, that's my company, is that when we're investing in someone, we'll actually go do a background check of the person that is running the startup, because we want to know if he's maybe a financial scammer, or maybe he's like uh, he's not reliable perhaps. So what we'll do is we will do a background check. This is a company called Merlon.ai, which is an artificial intelligence company, which does this exact thing, but it's an AI doing the thing. So for the longest time, this used to be something that AG did. And all of a sudden, there's this AI which does it. So if you were sort of in the loophole, in the sort of narrow mentality within AG, that all you ever did for AG was do background checks for people, then as soon as this AI came up, you would lose your job. You're so built into this one stream of work that you would essentially like expose yourself to losing your job if you're not learning new stuff constantly. The other sort of thing that has changed is there's a highly volatile market. So of course, this is an image of of the coronavirus, the effect of the coronavirus. SpiceJet stopped much before any of the other airlines stopped. But if you thought that your expertise in working in airlines could sort of guarantee you your employment, you move on to another airlines, and then all of the airlines stop because there's a coronavirus happening. So there's a very highly volatile market, and demands can change like this. Like all of a sudden the industry that you worked in is no longer in demand, and maybe an industry you have never thought of working at is in demand so much that they're willing to pay a lot of money. So that's another thing which has changed. Number three, globalization. This is a picture of Kigali in Nigeria. All of the big buildings being built here is due to foreign direct investment into the place. And the reason that a lot of foreign investment is flowing into Kigali is that people are willing to do this cheaper. So the reason I talk about globalization is that a lot of Indians sort of had this mentality that um, India does it, right? India does it better than anybody. So as long as there is somebody who needs it around the world, they'll come to India. Well, that's being changed. All of a sudden people are getting much more interconnected. Job markets are not limited to a single country. So if somebody is looking for an employee, he will not just look in India, he will look in Taiwan, he will look in Honduras, he will look in Venezuela. Wherever he can find someone who can actually do the work and do it better and do it cheaper, that person is getting hired. The flip side to this, the better side to this, is that if you are in India, you're no longer limited to working for an Indian employer. An Indian employer is not going to even match the salary of somebody who's paying you from America. So if you can actually demonstrate your value, then you can directly work for an American company or European company living in India, and you'll be earning the same rate as the Europeans and the Americans. So there's this a double-edged sword, which sort of is interesting. Number four, better credentials with the internet. For the longest time, people didn't have access to information. If I wanted to hire someone, what I would do is I would look at their resume 50 years ago, right? I'd look at their resume, I'd say, okay, you have a degree from Harvard. I think you're very good. I'll hire you. That is because I have no other way of verifying whether you are worthy of working at my company or not. I have no internet. Nowadays, if I want to find something about you, I literally go to your social media. I look at all your posts. I look at the stuff that you interact with. And I know more about you in 5 minutes now than I would have, 50 years ago if I had like literally stalked you for like a day. So there is so much information available on the internet that like the credentials like a degree, the value of them are going less. If you can demonstrate on the internet, on your social media, on your LinkedIn profile, on whatever, that your credential, your work ethic is strong, you have projects, whatever. If your internet is strong, then people have no incentive to hire a degree person, because why should I hire someone whose resume says that I have a degree in CS when I can hire someone who has literally demonstrated all of these programs and written all of these algorithms, and I can literally see what he's bringing to the table? So there's a better credential available, which is the internet. And number five, the world is becoming increasingly decentralized. Every single country, every single state, city have their own policy, have their own sort of method of working, and they're all different from each other. So on the right, of course, is a picture of McDonald's in different countries, and how the menus differ, right? So for example, in India, you won't have beef. So it's because every single culture demands their own sort of way of working. And if you've only exposed yourself to one way of working, then you're limiting your job opportunities. You can't work in America if you've only ever worked in a particular setting, in a particular mindset. So these are sort of the five main reasons. And for someone who has sort of started learning and started taking matters into their own hands, and not depending on, I'm in a college or I'm in a company or whatever, and I'll slowly grow, someone like that could greatly benefit. And the good news is that if you are one of those people, companies are willing to pay for this. Companies don't want to hire entrepreneurs for free. They'll pay pretty well. So here's a job listing by Toggle Track, which is a company that one of my mentors is involved with. His name is Nick Randler. And what I want you to focus is on the compensation and benefits, and the gross salary for the role, and we'll talk about the role in a second, is 50,000 euros per year, which is equivalent to about 50 lakh rupees per year. It is much more than somebody with an employee mentality can make even at the end of his career. And this is a pretty entry level role. It's not exactly entry level, but it's close. The role for this is content marketing manager. And you basically need to create a content calendar, and you have to work with team members and freelancers to produce high quality content. I'm actually happy that the next workshop is about content writing. So perhaps you'll be able to tie in some of the stuff with here. But maybe if you go to that workshop and you learn stuff about content writing and you develop experience and you take matters into your own hands about like, writing content, you can apply to Toggle Track and you can earn 50 lakh rupees annually. And you don't have to, if you can sort of prove to them that, you're not someone who is like depending on something, you're taking your learning, you're taking your career into your own hands, Toggle Track are willing to pay you 50 lakh annually. So this is not new. The most successful teenagers and youth today have already understood this and are reaping great benefits from it. So I'll talk about some case studies. Almost all of the people that I'll talk about here are people I've known personally. So you can verify this. Igor Gassman is a friend who wanted to work for a company called Stir. Now, instead of sending them a resume and a sort of piece of paper which says, please hire me, I have like a experience and degree or whatever, he went ahead and built an entire website. He built a website to show them why he was such a great fit for them. And the website is called igorforster.com. You can literally look it up right now if you want to. It's amazing. If you have time, maybe I'll show you the video that he made. But it's an entire website which talks about why he's a great fit for the company. Um, Notice the emphasis on personal projects. He's not talking about, you know, he's not talking about that I have done this for somebody. This is like all of these are his personal projects. And he's literally demonstrating to them that if you hire me, these are the stuff that I've done already. And if you hire me, I can continue doing this for you. He's literally proving this to them. Kenja Teng, another one of my friends, she wanted to work in graphic design. So what she did is she went on Udemy and she built her entire graphic design course. So for the next time that she applies to a graphic design job and people ask her that, what is your credential? Why should we hire you? She can literally send them this entire course that she made and she can say, well, watch this, I guess. I literally teach people graphic design for some money. And she did not only just she built the course, she also documented her entire process of how she's building the course in a series of YouTube vlogs. So if somebody wants to get into detail that how exactly she did that, she has an entire YouTube vlog series which talks about how she's building a graphic design course as she's building a graphic design course. Mariah Klein, another one of my friends, wanted to work with Lex Friedman on his podcast series, Lex Friedman, the Professor. So she went ahead and redesigned his entire website. His website currently, well, sucks to say the least. And she went ahead on Webflow and she redesigned the entire website. Then she sent it to Lex Friedman as a gift for free. She sent it to him and she said, hey, I want to work for you. And if I were to work for you, I can do stuff like this. So this is sort of the way that people who are developing the entrepreneurial mentality are thinking. I have one other example, which is sort of my own project that I made for my portfolio. I want to demonstrate my work ethic, right? So what I did is I wrote a book about productivity, demonstrating that I know what productivity looks like, but I challenged myself to complete it in 30 days. So I got along with a friend, and me and my friend co-authored and published the book on productivity in 30 days. While I was doing it, I documented my entire process and I created additional resources for somebody who wants to do the same. So Miro is the tool we use to sort of put our ideas together. And I wrote an entire piece about how Miro is so good for creative collaboration. And while I was doing this, I started a social media marketing campaign, which you can see here, which generated demand through my writing before the book was published. So if I wanted to apply in, say, like a social media marketing role, I can literally just send them this channel and I say, I have done this before and look at my results. And here's the book. And, I have proof. I don't have to tell you to hire me. I can literally prove why you should hire me. So all of this is fairly like, mindset oriented. I'm talking about theory here, but I want to take the last part of my presentation to get a little practical and tell you exactly how this benefits you and what you can do from it. I can't give you very specific things because project ideas and your own sort of career experience has to come from within yourself. You have to decide what you want to do. But I can give you four essential philosophies that you have to keep in mind to get into this habit. And once you do, you're set for success. There's no limit to the earning potential that you can have. So the four principles that I want to talk about is document everything, learn, show, don't tell, and give, then ask. So we'll go through these one by one. This is the first principle. Document everything, all that you're learning, all that you're doing, everything, all the problems that you've faced, every experience that you've had is valuable. And there are people out there who are looking to learn from your experience. So document everything. Now, one of the most common sort of objections I get to this is, I don't have anything to document. Well, here's an example. One of my friends, Varis Hassan, he documented a Bollywood movie. So we sort of interact with a lot of Americans, and he literally documented what he learned from watching Rocket sing Salesman of the Year, and it literally went viral on Praxis. So people appreciated it a lot, and they literally, like lots of comments flowed in, and lots of people actually went ahead and watched Rocket sing Salesman of the Year after Varis made this post. So all the notions that whatever your experience is like invalid or it's not good enough for somebody to read, it's, if you excuse my language, it's bullshit. Please, just whatever you're learning, whatever the problems you're facing, whatever your experience is, document it. People are willing to learn from it, and that will help you greatly later in your career. When you can show to people your history of documentation, it works much better. On the internet, it gives people so much idea of who you are. The second is Alexa Bermazovich. He's my colleague at Asian Apple Group. He was studying economics in college, but he thought the learning there was quite slow. And Asian Apple Group is quite demanding. So he left college, and what he did was he read 356 books in an year. So every day he would finish one book and he would write and review. Now, of course, this is quite extreme, and I'm not asking you to read 356 books per year, but it's a very good example of how somebody who wants to learn, who wants to take his learning into his own hands does it. Alexa Bermazovich was too frustrated by the pace at which his economics course was going. So he read 356 books in an year to teach himself economics. And now he's one of the most valuable, one of the most senior people at Asian Apple Group. And he's one of the most cool guys in general. If you talk to him, you literally hear his knowledgeability, you hear his, how well read he is. He has a great personality. And all of that comes from his own drive to teach himself stuff. He's not waiting for someone. He's teaching himself economics, and he's teaching himself, what to do with his career. Show, don't tell. When somebody asks you, why are you a good fit for this role? You shouldn't have to tell them, well, you should be able to show them proof of why you are. This is a friend, Mia Liang. She learned an email marketing tool called MailChimp, and then she made a tutorial and an overview of what MailChimp is like. Now, if Mia Liang, again, was to go to an email marketing job, and people were to ask her, are you familiar with email marketing tools? She can send them this blog and video series, and she can talk about, this is how familiar I am. And people can verify this, which is the greatest sort of advantage. Um, when people hear that, yeah, I'm pretty good, it's not that convincing. But when you can show them that here's all of these blogs and here's all of these videos I've made, it works wonders. And Mia Liang is one of the most successful sort of people I know. She's great at this. And then the last principle is give, then ask. When you ask for a job, when you ask for a contract, the usual thing is to go and literally ask for it. Hey, can I work for you? But what you should do is keep giving them stuff for free. Make them so dependent on you giving them stuff for free, and give them such good quality products for free that it's an absolutely stupid decision on their part to not hire you. So the image I have here is the Bhutan Special Economic Zones report, which people at Asian Apple Group made. It's like 4 months of research. All of these people putting their heads together. It was so much work, and we put together this report which tells you how to invest into Bhutan. And how much we're selling this at our website? Zero. If you go to our website, you can download this report for absolutely free. And the reason we are doing this is we want to give value to our potential clients, and we want to give them value for free so much that they start thinking, if this guy can give us value for free, like what can this guy do if we pay them, if we hire them? So always, whenever you're trying to get a job, whenever you're trying to get a contract, give them stuff, keep giving them stuff until they start thinking this is an absolutely stupid idea. Why shouldn't I hire this person? He's amazing. So please give, and then ask. So I want to wrap this up because I want to have some time for questions as well. Um, the 9 to 5 cubicle machine jobs are a dying breed. Dynamic, self-driven, fast-growing entrepreneurs are the future, even at employee level. Even if you're working at a company, you have to think, you have to become an entrepreneur. Those who realize this early have a tremendous first mover advantage over those who don't, not only in terms of their income potential, but also in terms of their quality of life and the things that they're learning and how they're setting themselves up for the future. The only question is, are you going to be one of them? So thank you. If you guys have any questions, any comments, I'd love to take them. Otherwise, if you'd like to stay connected, follow me on LinkedIn. I'd love that.